Joining us now is social media star Caspar Lee, who helped launch the campaign, TV judge Rob Rinder, who is lending his very heavyweight support and explaining why looking forward is so important for our mental health, a psychotherapist and author Owen O'Kane. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining us. So, Caspar, let's start with you because you're sort of the brains and the emphasis behind the campaign. What was it that wanted to get you to get people thinking about looking forward? Why do you feel it's important?
So there was a stat I came across that more than 80% of young people with a history of mental health have found their conditions have worsened since the coronavirus began. And I have a platform, I've got a YouTube channel and Instagram following somehow. And I thought, you know, I've got a lot of young people who follow what I do. And if there's a way we could come up with a campaign that could get them thinking more positively, that would be a pretty good outcome.
And how have you been coping? Because you're a young person who's very sort of erudite and capable of recording, and you put things onto YouTube, and you've been sort of involved in that world for quite a long time. So have you been busy during lockdown, or have you equally found it difficult to be isolated away from your friends and family?
I've been lucky because I live with my best friend since we were 13 and my beautiful girlfriend, and we've gotten on really well. But yeah, creatively, it's been interesting, I suppose, kind of always just kind of doing stuff in isolation. But yeah, I've coped pretty well with it, but still looking forward to seeing my family and hopefully getting a haircut when this is all over, because my girlfriend did a pretty bad job, I think. Not sure what you think.
Yeah, we can see it in action now.
Yeah, wow.
I was doing, oh gosh, because the thing is, I wanted to do this interview just facing you so you couldn't see the back.
Too late, we've seen it now. We've seen it in all its glory. So going to the hairdressers is one thing that you're looking forward to then when all this is over?
Yeah, for sure. One of a few things.
And let's get, because Owen, coming to you, there's actual science behind this, isn't it? That if we, you know, because I was wondering if we think about the things that we're missing out on, if we think about the things that we really want to be doing, then that might make us feel worse because we're not able to do them. But there is actual science behind this kind of, you know, concept of the things that you're looking forward to, the things that give you hope, isn't there?
Yeah, well, so when Caspar contacted me, we talked about what we might do, and I thought, look, why don't we do a looking forward campaign? Because what we know is that when you can see life through a hopeful lens, and your brain chemistry actually changes, you produce more endorphins, more enkephalins, and essentially you'll feel a bit better. And so really, I think there are two choices, really. You can see life through the eyes of fear, and often anxiety is high when you're fearful. Mood drops and you struggle to function better. So we kind of thought, let's do this campaign where we know it's evidenced by research and that a hopeful perspective will actually make people manage better during this, you know, tough time.
And Rob, coming to you, because I know you're putting your support behind this as well. How have you found it? I mean, I know that you've suffered from coronavirus yourself. You've been through that. I'm so sorry because you lost your grandfather to it as well. You've been through a really difficult time, haven't you?
That's a kind thing to say. Thank you, Charlotte. But I think it pales into insignificance compared to lots of other people. You know, I'm always mindful. Very mindful. This has drawn it into sharp focus of my privilege, having outside space, having access to technology with the help and support of my friends, and also having access to people like Owen O'Kane, who you've just heard from, whose book and whose work has really been an enormous help to me. And that's why I was really pleased that Caspar, who's launched this incredible thing alongside probably, I think, not just a national, but a global expert in the form of Owen, are really thinking about not just now, but the future. You know, one of the things I think we're all aware of, or perhaps worrying about, and I think correctly, is that it's not just coping with the day-to-day emotional and psychological challenges of being in lockdown, but what happens in the future. And it's not a bleak prediction, I think it's shared by most mental health professionals, is that it's not just now. When we eventually come out of lockdown, people are going to be dealing with anxiety, people are going to naturally be coping with an economy that's in shreds. And if we can cultivate really good, hopeful strategies now, it seems to me like a really great way of thinking about our mental health, which is enormously important. I mean, we know, Charlotte, and Ben certainly been part in the past of this conversation, that, for example, suicide is the biggest killer, or has been, of men under 45. So for Caspar and for Owen, who, you know, as I say, is a professional who I really do respect, for them to come together and be speaking not just to that community, but beyond, and be thinking about how can we really work out thoughtful and professional and worthwhile strategies to find hope and to claw our way out of despair. And honestly, I think this is such a brilliant way to start doing it. And not just that, it's not just about this, but it's also about working out how you can be happier in your general life as well.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that whatever your background, whatever your situation, that's something which is worthwhile doing. In fact, I'm looking at Owen's book at the moment. It's called 10 Times Happier. And it seems to me that's like a worthwhile thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Owen, I wonder, because, of course, we're all here and we're all sitting at home with our various experiences. But as Rob says, you are renowned within your field as a psychotherapist and books that you've written. Do you find it a struggle, or are you able to engage and find some of those things that you tell some of your patients, some of the people you talk to alleviate your anxiety?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I've probably never been busier because I've got a lot going on at the minute. But to be fair, I think you'd be subhuman not to struggle at the moment. And like everyone, I have the odd bad day where I think, God, this feels a lot. But I suppose essentially I kind of have to practice what I preach, really. And for me, kind of the principles of the book, really, 10 Times Happier, about managing worry, hard to deal with uncertainty, keeping perspective in life. I've kind of got to practice those every day, really. So, yeah, it hasn't been easy, but, I think if I live what I preach, then it's much more manageable.
And, I mean, it's one thing, isn't it, that we're all waiting for the restrictions to be eased. We're all waiting to get to the end of this. Rob, I know that your filming has been paused at the moment for Judge Rinder. That must be one of the things I imagine you're looking forward to restarting. But what things are you looking forward to at the end of this when things get a bit more back to normal?
Yeah, it's really interesting. When you ask that question, I immediately have a naughty answer. But
we're on breakfast
the reality
TV.
is, breakfast TV. It's a thing we all miss. It's about that physical shared being alongside one another. I think it's all very well for us to have the technology to speak to each other, to see each other's faces. But what this has really consciously taught us is being physically present in the space of our loved ones really does matter. And that's one of the worst parts of coronavirus. You spoke about my grandfather, and for countless thousands of others, what the virus has robbed people of is the capacity to be physically in the space of the person who's suffering, to be able to touch your friends, and that closeness, that human desire to be alongside in the world with each other, just physically, to hug, to touch,
that's definitely
is everything.